Oi, pessoal. Aqui é a Isabel, professora de português de vocês. Today, we are going to talk about the past participle, okay? This is the first video of a series of videos that I will make for you throughout the semester. And I will talk about different grammatical points that your book covers. And then we are going to use the class to practice what I explained through via video. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the past participle. So in English, just so you can identify what it is in English. So if you get a verb, for example, like to eat, okay, the past of eat, ate, right? But you also have the form eaten, which you would use in situations such as John has eaten his apple. You would also use the past participle to refer to the passive voice, okay? So if you say, the apples were eaten by John, okay? This is the passive voice because the person acting comes at the end of the sentence rather than on the beginning. So you would say, John ate apples, and the passive, apples were eaten by John. So this is the past participle, the eaten form of verbs. Okay. So the past participle or the participle in Portuguese, okay, it has two different forms that you can find. The regular participles, they're simple, and pretty much what you would do is that verbs ending in AR, you would cross the AR and add ADO or ADO. Okay, verbs ending in ER, you cross the ER and add IDO, and IR, you cross it and add IDO as well. So for ER and IR, the ending is the same. Now, there are some verbs, as usual in Portuguese, that are irregular. They have irregular participles, okay? And I wrote it here, a list of the common the common verbs that have irregular participles, okay? So, for example, the verb abrir, which means to open, okay? The irregular participle is aberto rather than abrido, okay? So look here that I added a column of common mistakes that children, when they are acquiring languages or non-native speakers, they may say that. So, for these forms, you really just have to remember that they are irregular, okay? But we're going to practice in class. For por, which means to put, ver, to see, and vir, which is to come, I couldn't really think of a common mistake because I just, it didn't cross my mind something that people would say it, but I guess it would be something like, for a pod is like an OR verb, so that's why I couldn't come up with one. But ver would be vido, which I don't remember anybody making that mistake, so that's why I didn't add that. But a very common one, for example, is from the verb escrever, that the right irregular participle is escrito, and it's common for young people or people that are learning the language to say escrevido. Okay, but it's incorrect. That's why I put it in red. Okay, so let's go to the third slide. All right. In this list, this very extensive list of verbs that I added here, okay, you have to keep in mind that these verbs, they have two forms for the participle, okay? One that it's a regular form, and one that is an irregular form. Okay, this is the list of the most common ones, and here's the situation with this one. While the last list that I showed you on the previous slide, I showed you irregular verbs, but that only have one form. Okay, in this case, there are moments that you're going to use this, and there are moments that you're going to use the other one, and pretty much. Let's get the first example, okay? Aceitar, which means to accept, okay? It has two forms. One is aceitado, and the other one is aceito. Okay? So the difference is you would use the form aceito, which is considered a irregular participle, for things like this is an accepted document, for instance. Okay? So if you say this is an accepted document, you would say este documento está aceito. Okay? Ou este é documento aceito. So you're using aceito or accepted as if it was an adjective. Okay? In the same way, if you use it for passive voice, if you say, you know, the document was accepted by John, you would also use this form. O documento foi aceito pelo John. Now, there are some situations that you're going to use an auxiliary verb. So in English would be, for example, John has written an essay. Okay? In this case, notice that the verb has two forms, the has and the written. Okay? Now, in Portuguese, it's very similar. If you use an auxiliary verb, but the verb that it's conjugated, it's not, for example, aceitar, this is the form that you would use. So, I'm going to say the sentence, okay? John has been accepting many documents, all right? O John tem aceitado muitos documentos. Notice that the has been doing in English doesn't translate, you don't have a translation for each word in Portuguese. You would say something similar to John has accepted. But I will explain the difference between the has been doing and has done in Portuguese and English in video 3. Okay, but understand that if you're using the verb accept with another auxiliary verb, you're going to use the regular form of the verb. So in this case, aceitado. Okay, I'm going to go over all this list so you understand what they mean. But we can practice more in class today. Okay, acender means to light something up. So you could use it for or turn on the light or light up a candle. Benzer means to bless. Confundir means to confuse someone of something. Eleger means to elect. Entregar means to deliver. Exprimir means to express. Expulsar to expel, extinguir to extinguish, enxugar to dry. So if your hair is wet, você enxuga o cabelo. Frigir means to fry, and there's another meaning as well, but that's what I can think of right now. Ganhar means to win, gastar to spend, imprimir to print, limpar to clean, matar to kill, morrer to die, pagar to pay, prender to arrest, revolver to revolve, to turn around, salvar to save, soltar to let something go, submergir to submerge, suspender to suspend something. Okay. Alright, so let me explain a little bit more now. Remember that in the previous slide, we talked about those verbs that have two forms of participle, okay? So you see that one of the columns that you would use the irregular forms of the verbs, it said that you could use for adjectives and for passive voice. So to explain this a little bit better, so you can actually see the examples, look at this example. As casas alugadas, okay? The rented houses. So notice that rented is making, it has a role of an adjective because it characterizes houses, okay? So in this case, you're going to use, you're going to use the participle, but in this case, alugar is one of the verbs that it's regular, so it only has one form, okay? But if it was something else, then you would have to use the irregular one. Same thing for pintar. Pintar is also a regular verb, so it only has one form of the participle, but you would say as paredes pintadas, the painted walls. So, o apartamento limpo. So, limpo is one of the ones that has two participles, okay? So, this is the irregular one, the clean apartment, or the cleaned, I guess, apartment. But if you say, for example, you know, the apartment has been cleaned, then you would use the other form, limpado. Okay, so you can also use the verb estar plus participle, okay? So something is done or something is printed. So check the example here. O documento que coloquei na sua mesa já está impresso. The document that I put in your table has already been printed, okay? I will explain the difference between you know, using the simple present and present perfect in Portuguese and English, because it's not a perfect translation, but understand that this means already is printed, but in English it sounds better to say has already been printed. But anyway, but understand that with the verb estar, if you use the participle, the participle plays a role of an adjective, okay? Very good. Passive voice. So passive voice, remember, is when the person or whoever did the action comes at the end of the sentence. And I will explain more about it on video 2, so just bear with me for now. Passive voice, you always use a form of the verb ser and then the participle, okay? Now, remember that ser is a complicated verb because it has a lot of irregular forms. And then here, the past of ser for nós is fomos. Nós fomos informadas que não haverá aula amanhã por causa da neve. We were informed that there won't be any class tomorrow because of the snow. Okay? So, but who informed us, it's irrelevant in this case. So this is what's called passive voice. All right. Keep in mind that for when you use it as the participle as an adjective or in passive voice, the participle needs to match the person. It needs to agree with the noun that it modifies, okay? So in this case, nós, I can know for sure that these we here are all women because I'm using as informadas, okay? If it was one woman and two men, then it would be nós fomos informados, okay? So for situations A and B, the participle always agrees with the noun or the people that it modifies. And then we have the last one, which is verb forms with auxiliary verbs. And again, I'm going to give you more details on video 3. But in this case, o Manuel tem recebido muitas reclamações ultimamente. Okay? O Manuel has been receiving. Now, again, I'll explain the difference between present perfect simple and continuous. But just so you understand right now, you can translate it as o Manuel has received. It's not really what it means, but just so you kind of follow with me in terms of the form. Manuel has received a lot of complaints lately, okay? So notice that the verb, there are two verb forms. The verb ter, the verb receber, right? The first verb is always the one that you conjugate, so it's always the one that you have to choose based on the subject. But the second one in this case, it's a participle. So you're going to use the participle of the verb. So if it is a verb that has two participles, you're going to use one of them, the regular form. If it is one that it's regular, you use just the one form. Or if it's one that it's completely irregular, you use that form. But notice that if it is o Manuel, or if it is the man, os homens, you would change the verb here, the auxiliary verb. So, for example, os homens têm, but then you would have to use like an accent because it's eles. Recebido. So, recebido doesn't change at all in the form C. Only tem that would change if the person, the agent of the sentence was a different one. Okay. All right. So here, I had an exercise, okay, but it already has the answer, but just so you kind of see the example. A Madonna é uma cantora, blá 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 no mundo, okay? So I want to say that Madonna is a known singer throughout the world, okay? Conhecer here, or the known that I want, is an adjective that characterizes cantora, okay? In other words, known singer, okay? So, conhecida needs to match the noun that it modifies, that in this case is cantora, which is singular and female, okay? Alright, for the second one. Atualmente, o Justin Bieber é o artista mais... So, lately or recently, Justin Bieber is the artist. It is the most interviewed artist in the United States, or the artist that people interview the most. Also, it plays a role of an adjective, okay? And so it has to match do. We're using singular and male, masculine form because Justin Bieber is a man. An artist, because of my O here, tells me it's a man. Os dinossauros são animais extintos. Dinosaurs are extinct animals, okay? So, also again, an adjective. Dinosaurs are extinct animals. A Jussara tem uma casa muito arrumada. Ooh, there's a little mistake here, so let me cross. No S, okay? So, a Jussara tem uma casa muito arrumada. Casa arrumada, okay? So, Jussara has a very organized home. Encontrei uma caixa de Ferrero Rocher aberta. I found a box of Ferrero Rocher open. Okay. Also, open in this case is an adjective, and it matches caixa, which is a female noun in Portuguese. O homem, opa, a little mistake again, but let me make sure that it's right. O homem preso negou seu envolvimento no crime. Okay? The arrested man denied his involvement in the crime. And just to fix something here that I just realized, it's not envolvimento. I was influenced by English. Involvement. Envolvimento. Com E. Oops. Let me delete that. You got it, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And this was video number 1.